received from folks about, the Senate bill that's under review here that basically bans your ability to assemble a fully functional firearm, the SAFE Act being repealed, the pistol permitting regime going on forever, etc. What can we do? Well, you're not going to vote your way out of it. You're not going to probably sue your way out of it. So you have to basically engage in what's called direct citizen action. How can you do that? You can talk to law enforcement. I mean, the only way that you can have effective gun control and force people to take various vaccines, compel people to do things against their will, is if you have a compliant police enforcement arm. And talking to officers all across the state for the past 2 years about what laws they think are constitutional, what laws they don't think are constitutional, what they can and can't enforce, they don't understand that they're a check against the legislature. Okay, and they're facing excessive civil liability. The legislature is working to end qualified immunity for them. And in effect, they're going to run with pay cuts going forward. They're not going to get overtime pay going forward because, as has been alluded to by other speakers, the state's facing a $50 billion deficit over the next several years. It's essentially bankrupt. So any progressive legislator that's telling police right now, you have to listen to me because if you don't, you're not going to get your paycheck or you're not going to get your pension, they're lying to you. You're not going to get that anyway because the money's all gone. The state was bankrupt before COVID. It's going to be bankrupt now and after COVID, and the feds are not coming to the rescue. So I don't think law enforcement, frankly, has an incentive any longer to enforce these unconstitutional gun control laws. So you can have those conversations with law enforcement leaders. What you can also do is work to defund the state. If the police are not enforcing the state's imperial edicts, and they're working to defund and abolish the police, then you may as well not have a governor or a legislature anymore because their policy decisions have an effective range of 0 meters. So you can work to do that by doing a couple things. I'm not going to tell you directly to do this, but you have the decision to not participate in the census. You do. Now, there are federal laws that say that you could be fined for that, but I can also share with you that since 1970, not a single person has been fined or incarcerated for not complying with the census. And what does that do to New York State? Why is Governor Cuomo so focused on getting high census participation? He wants a welfare payment from the federal government to bail him out from the massive deficit that's been run up by New York. So non-participation in the census drives the population rate down that's reported. New York State receives less federal money and less representation in Washington. That's also good for the nation because that's less left progressive influence on Washington as a whole. The other thing you can do is, your children are out of the government school system right now. Keep them out. It's a good thing to keep them out of the government school system because that's where they learn to comply with the progressive agenda. It's where they learn things like gun rights are bad, where they learn to comply with mandated vaccines. Look to alternative means of educating your children, homeschool if you can. And of course, also with respect to keeping more of what you earn, try and find an accountant that has an expertise and maybe an ideological fit with you and trying to keep as much of your money as possible. Viewing the tax situation as something that's a forcible redistribution of your wealth. I'm very confident that in the coming year, we're going to see audit rates rise substantially because the state's going to be trying to claw back all this money. And they're probably going to come after people who are politically vulnerable, people who resisted during the coronavirus shutdown, restaurants that tried to stay open, gyms that tried to stay open but got shut down, gun stores that tried to stay open, which we've represented in court. Work with an accountant to try to keep as much of that money in your pocket and give the least amount to the state. Unfortunately, at this point in the game, voting's not going to help. The courts aren't going to help. Only direct citizen action will. Together, we can send a weakened New York State over the edge. We can get them into a state of fiscal collapse where, frankly, they can't control your lives anymore. So together, we can have that impact. We can set up a situation where the laws passed in this building have an effective range of 0. Thanks, everybody, for coming out. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, Steve Filano. Okay, folks, our next speaker is Rita Palma. Rita has been a leader in the move to protect our basic right to make the decision of what is injected into our bodies and our children's bodies for 15, 20 years now. And she works through a number of organizations. She's probably best known for her organization, My Kids, My Choice. Rita?
Okay, thank you. Okay, lots of you people know me, and we've got a lot of problems, obviously. All the speakers before me talked about all the issues that we're addressing here in New York. And there's one way to get out of this, and that is to get better representation. We can vote our way out of the problems that we face, and we can do it November 3rd. Everybody here has 2 state representatives, and most of you probably know this, but if you don't, I'm telling you there's 2 representatives in your backyards that you need to get to know. You need to make friends with them, you need to have them know your face, and you need to explain to them what your interests are. My history, my interests, the reason that I got into this is because I filed a religious waiver to refuse vaccines 15 years ago, and my school district gave me a hard time. I did what I needed to do for my kids, and then I jumped in and said, you know what, I'm going to change this law. I didn't. In 2019, we actually lost the religious exemption, but we're on a path to get back. Right now, we have a bill that protects the medical exemption, and I'm telling you, it's the first step to getting back our freedom overall regarding vaccines. And each and every one of you here can contact your state representatives and get support for this bill. Reach out to me. I'll set you up with all the information you need, the bill numbers, the bill language, and who represents you, and you can go visit them with some good points and say, hey, children are entitled to a medical exemption to immunizations, because if we don't move forward with our issue, we're going to constantly move backward. What is on the horizon for us is a mandatory COVID vaccine for cradle to grave every year, everybody, no exceptions, no medical exceptions, no philosophical exemptions, no anything. So we have to get on track to correct the situation, and we can do it with a bill that we have in our state legislature held by 2 Democrats, my senator being one of them, and Angela Santa Barbara, who's a local Democratic Assembly member. The bill numbers, to get into the weeds with this, 7573 on the Senate side, 10813 on the Assembly side. This is the bill we need to push. It's specific, it will protect your families, and it is our first step towards regaining our rights regarding vaccine choice. And, you know, no matter, if you've never embarked upon an education about vaccines, but one thing they want is to win this November 3rd. No elected official enters a race saying, well, I really don't care, I really want to lose. So use your vote, use the power of your vote, engage friends in the effort, visit offices in groups. I'll give you all the guidance you need. If you want to roll up your sleeves and get to work, I will absolutely help you do anything you need, okay? So any questions, please, I'll be here for a while, and let's get to work. There are ways to fix this.
Thank you, Rita. Ali, are you here? There he is. Okay. Our next speaker, folks, is a warrior father who, just quickly, he'll tell you more in detail about it. His son had a medical exemption from a vaccine mandate to attend school for several years, and then basically for no good reason it was removed, and Ali fought back. Thank you. Ali Hamadeh.
Thank you, John. Hello, everyone. Thanks for coming out today, guys. We really appreciate the support. My name is Ali Hamida. I'm the president of Warrior Dads for Freedom, and the reason I made this group is to bring a whole bunch of fathers, you know, brothers, cousins, uncles, to come support our wives, sisters, mothers. So that's the whole foundation behind Warrior Dads for Freedom. So and it's been great. Since I started, you know, it was mostly women. Now it's becoming even, which is beautiful, Rita. You know, I'm seeing a guy next to every woman, which is great. Okay, let me get into our story. You guys probably remember me from my son's Amir's story. Amir was kicked out of school in July of 2019 when Governor Cuomo and the Department of Health decided to take away our religious exemptions for vaccinations. Amir then received 2 medical exemptions from his neurologist, and both were denied by New York State Department of Health. We then fiercely fought the Department of Health, sued the school, won the case, and got Amir back in school. So that was was very big. And that's a big appreciation to Del Victory and Aaron Siri, which funded the whole thing for us. I'm here today to talk about my personal experience as a parent living in communist New York State. My 3 boys were all kicked out of school for not being vaccinated. My 10-year-old son Amir, who was diagnosed with cerebral palsy and Lennox-Gastaut seizure disorder, luckily got back in school. My other 2 sons were not as lucky and they cannot attend school due to New York State vaccination laws. My youngest son Abdullah, who is 3 years old, was born with a rare neurological disorder called Mobius syndrome. Mobius syndrome is the paralysis of the facial muscle that affects his facial expressions such as smiling, frowning, crying, his ability to eat and speak. His eyes do not move vertically from left to right, and from the facial paralysis, he cannot blink his eyes and has trouble closing them as well. This disorder also causes him to have low muscle tone, therefore he cannot crawl or walk yet. Abdullah was born with his tongue fused to his septum. When he was 2 weeks old, he had to have surgery to separate his tongue from his septum. When he had the surgery, he almost lost half his tongue in the process of taking it off the septum. Abdullah has received many therapies such as physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy, and special education. He is also in the process of receiving vision therapy due to his visual complications. Sadly, all these important services were stripped away from him because of the COVID-19 lockdown. Even when this is finally over, God willing it ends, Abdullah cannot attend school and get his services he deserves due to him not being vaccinated. So we're still screwed regardless from COVID or him not being vaccinated, so he still can't get the right services he needs. My middle son Ahmed is 7 years old, and he is suffering the same fate and not being allowed to enter public or private schools because he also lost his religious exemption. This is all thanks to our sellout governor, Andrew Cuomo. Andrew Cuomo has caused great grief and death throughout the state of New York. He has sold his state to be lab rats for profit, guys, which is unbelievable. We are literally lab rats, waiting to be sold to Big Pharma. Governor Cuomo will go down in history as one of the worst, maybe the worst governor of all time. And if we have the FBI watching, I am urging the FBI to investigate Governor Cuomo and his Democratic buddies for crimes against humanity. Cuomo's gotta go. Cuomo's gotta go. Cuomo's gotta go. Cuomo's gotta go. Thank you. Okay, due to the difficult circumstances, my wife Aruba cannot be here today. Aruba is a mother to our 4 children, 2 of them having severe special needs. In addition to this, she has become a full-time occupational therapist, physical therapist, speech therapist, teacher, and nurse overnight. It is incredibly hard for one person to take on all these duties overnight, along with being a mother to a 1-year-old baby. Because of the COVID-19 shutdown, Aruba took a major role on doing teletherapy for Amir and Abdullah. Between Amir and Abdullah, she does 12 teletherapy sessions a week, guys, and that's extremely hard. I watch her struggle. For a mother that has to cook, clean, give bath, do laundry, feed the kids, play with the kids, and of course make sure the kids get enough love and affection, it can be overwhelming for 2 parents, multiple therapists, let alone one mother. So imagine. Yeah, believe me, I feel for my wife. It kills me. As a full-time mechanic, I cannot help Aruba as much as I want to. The burden has all fallen on her. I see my wife struggling to keep up with all these responsibilities while keeping her head up high and strong. Aruba is one of the strongest mothers under the sun. I admire and feel her pain so much, and I feel so much sympathy for her. Aruba lost her passion in her career as an esthetician. She needed to devote her time to Amir when he was born and we were hit with his unforeseen circumstances. So I love you, Aruba, if you're listening. Thank you for being the best mother. The whole COVID shutdown was never about safety, but more about selling vaccines, unfortunately. Governor Cuomo ruined his economy and people's lives here in New York State to go along with his deep state agenda, which is to sell vaccines, guys. That's what it comes comes down to. It's very sad that we have to suffer.
CDC sells $4.6 billion of vaccines every year. $4.6 billion. They're not even a government institution.
Exactly.
They're a separate organization.
How are we pushing a rushed, untested, warp speed, and unsafe vaccine when you have a natural cure called hydrochloroquine? How is that possible, guys? Fox News aired an article that stated hydrochloroquine could save up to 100,000 lives if used for COVID-19. This is according to Yale epidemiologist, Professor Dr. Harvey Risch. And of course, they shut him down. Okay? America's top frontline doctors that are hands-on with COVID patients that came forward and said hydrochloroquine and zinc are the best cure for COVID-19. They immediately censored them, erased their live videos, and shut down their social media accounts. Yeah. Very sad. Very sad. Very, very sad. There was a particular doctor by the name of Dr. Stella Emanuel. Yeah. She was super fierce and came forward and said the cure is hydrochloroquine. So they called her crazy, and she got banned from YouTube and Facebook, which is very sad. She's such a smart lady. I guess telling the truth is not allowed anymore. We are now in a censorship era, guys, so get used to it. We are all being censored, from the highest level to the lowest level. Okay? If you speak the truth about anything, you get censored and kicked off social media platform. The CDC, FDA, NIH, and WHO are working so hard to prevent natural herd immunity, guys. Why is that? If we naturally get the COVID virus, their plans will have failed and they will lose billions and maybe trillions of dollars, you know, from vaccine sales. As RFK Jr. said, the CDC and FDA are a vaccine company. Nothing more, nothing less. They're a vaccine company. So, it's crazy. Bill Gates, along with Dr. Fauci, have teamed up with the biggest social media platforms such as Facebook, YouTube, and Google to fact check and censor anyone talking about the truth and against their agenda. They constantly target and censor big figures in our movement such as RFK Jr. and Del Bigtree. They have recently deleted all the high-wire social media pages on Facebook and YouTube. In addition to that, they erased all their hard work over the years. Del Bigtree and his team have been working hard for over the last decade to bring us honest and real uncut raw truth. They have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars researching, doing scientific studies to bring us the truth, and that's the way to pay them back, by destroying what they built and what they worked hard for. When is this gonna end? When are we gonna be free? Even on a lower scale of social media platforms, we get censored on a daily basis. I'm currently in Facebook jail for 30 days for talking about dead baby fetuses and vaccines, in which we all know that's true because I linked the CDC website showing that there is dead baby fetuses and vaccines. I still got fact checked and suspended. In 1948, my grandparents left the war zone in Palestine as refugees to go to a country of Jordan. My parents then migrated from Jordan to America in hopes it would better their children's lives. They came to America, the land of the free, thinking we could live in peace and tranquility, but that was not the case. What I have experienced in the past year in New York State made me realize that we truly are not living in peace and have no freedom. If my grandparents were still alive today, they would be devastated to see the way we are living in communist New York State. Most New Yorkers comply because of the fear. I refuse to comply, and I will keep fighting for our religious and medical freedom. I'm just going to give you a little bit of history about Governor Cuomo before I end this. Governor Cuomo has illegally kicked out 26,000 plus students for not being vaccinated. He decided to take millions of dollars from Big Pharma in exchange of mandating vaccines. Cuomo has no conscience. He killed thousands of elderly people by placing them in nursing homes and simply moved on without any regrets or just didn't look back. He just said, oh, it is what it is. I wouldn't put my mom in there, but I'm moving on. Cuomo is a dictator. He favors profits over freedom for his constituents. Cuomo was on an Epstein flight log. Now I understand why he has a nipple piercing at the age of 62. Now I know why. Cuomo has the highest COVID rates and deaths throughout the country. And they're saying he's the best governor. I mean, people are blind, honestly. Cuomo is a hypocrite. He forces New Yorkers to wear a mask while he's in public without wearing a mask. Cuomo is allowing Bill Gates to interfere in our children's school system. He's handing over our kids' education to a billionaire shark that only worries about profit. Cuomo has given big corporations such as Big Pharma control over a medical decision and made our kids lab rats. Cuomo allowed hundreds of criminals such as thugs, rapists, and killers to roam the streets without jail time. Last but not least, Governor Cuomo praised violent protesters and looters around New York State, stating that they are fed up after 400 years of slavery, which is completely irrelevant. And the only real prison is fear, and the only real freedom is freedom from fear. Thank you, guys. God bless you all. Thanks for coming out.
Ali Hamadeh. Our last speaker, but not our last presenter, because we're going to have music at the end here, was up here earlier already. It's Brooke Jordan. Brooke is a force of nature when it comes to fighting for her children, my children, your children, in just about every arena that's out there. So, Brooke, there you are.
So this picture here pretty much sums up why we are all here today. Because Cuomo has a lot of blood on his hands to account for. We've had person after person come up here and give various different accounts. Things that Cuomo has done and things that he's guilty of. He's guilty of killing our elderly. He's guilty of killing our middle-aged by releasing prisoners from jail before time and having them come out and recommit murders and rapes and other assaults. He's guilty of killing children of all ages through his vaccine mandates. And he's guilty of killing our most innocent, our unborn children. So today, I was tasked with talking about Cuomo's lovely Reproductive Act. The only thing that I could compare what he did with this Reproductive Act, where he allowed the murder of unborn babies after 24 weeks, the only thing I could think to compare him to was a rebel warlord. When you think of warlords, their sole purpose is to kill the next generation of their enemies. And that is exactly what Cuomo did. He authorized the ability or the instruction for doctors to be able to enter into a child's most protected area, the womb of its mother, to enter in there and slaughter our unborn children. Now, to many of you, it may not be, such a big deal. There are many people out there, not you necessarily, but out there on the World Wide Web and other places that they may be seeing this, where this may not be such a big deal to you. But when I think about it, when we have leadership that thinks nothing of entering into the womb and murdering babies, when life is one of the most essential things that we have. Life is a gift. It's a gift that comes with responsibility. And every life that is created is a light. Who is he to allow people to enter in and diminish the light of the unborn children before it's been even allowed to enter into the world? Here I am as an African American in New York State. I'm a descendant of slaves. Even the slaves knowing the conditions that they were facing, still chose to have their babies. So I'm with this argument like life is so hard that the only way that we can help is to kill unborn children. I don't believe that. Because I'm only here because in spite of the hardness, my ancestors still chose to give birth. When my mom was pregnant with me, she was facing a divorce. She was in the middle of a divorce. A young parent already had 3 children. She thought multiple times about getting rid of me. But thank God she didn't. And I stand here today to fight for the rights of my children and your children because she chose life for me. My sister was pregnant with my nephew, and the doctors told her he doesn't have a chance. She had beat cancer as a child, but she had multiple treatments of chemotherapy, and they said he doesn't have a chance. He's going to come out with a disability. You should get rid of him. They tormented her over and over again. Your son's life is not going to be worth anything. You should abort him. You know what? My nephew is a 21-year-old college graduate student. Not to mention, who are they to think that they can determine what someone's quality of life is worth or not worth? These people think they're God, and this is why I'm here today to remind them they are not God. God is God. Cuomo is Cuomo, and he is nothing but a man. This gentleman who spoke earlier today, who gave us our options, of voting and our options of the barrel, he left out one option. Prayer is our most viable option. Prayer. Do not diminish what prayer brings to the table. There was a young man in 2018, shortly after my nephew Justice passed away of cancer in April of 2018. In August, there was a young man by the name of Jeremiah Thomas who lived in Texas. He was battling cancer at 16 years old, and the only thing that he wanted before he died was to see his governor value life and to abolish. He didn't care about his own life. Justice didn't care about his own life. They wanted the lives of the children, the lives of unborn babies, the lives of future generations to matter. I'm the mother of 3 black children. Yes, Black lives matter. But you know what else? Unborn lives matter. White lives matter. Black and blue lives matter. Christians matter. Muslim lives matter. The disabled lives matter. Women's lives matter. Men's lives matter. We all matter. At the end of the day, we all matter. And unless and until we can stand together as one and stop allowing these liars to divide us, we won't see what we truly can be as a nation. We all matter, and we have to stand united. We've got one flag here. One flag. It's the flag, the red, white, and blue over there. That is our flag. And we have to stand united under that flag, which was created under God. So that's all I have to say, is that all of our lives matter. And in doing so, I just wanted to leave you guys with a little bit of hope for today. We don't want to end on a negative. We want to end on a positive, because we do have hope for our future. As long as God is still God, we have hope for our future. Many people ask me, are you going to leave? What are you going to do? My kids were kicked out of school. Are you going to leave? What are you going to say? I've never been a runner. I have always been a fighter. I'm not going anywhere unless and until God tells me to, and unless and until I see Governor fail out of his throne. And somebody else who loves New York State as much as we do out there fighting for
thanks,
the
brother. I
rights
appreciate
of
it.
the people and our children here in New York State.
I sent you messages on Facebook. like this is how I found this. I wouldn't have known about this. You know, I try to peruse, you know, as many of my DMs and all that stuff as I possibly can. And sometimes I get a hit like this. Thank goodness.
Well, I do some live broadcasts and I see your stuff on YouTube. If ever you want to give an old guy a chance to talk to millennials, I would love it.
All right, I'll check my DMs. What's your name?
Tim O'Connor.
Tim O'Connor. I will definitely look at it when I get home. All right.
Thank you very much.
No problem.
This is a good country to be in. Yes, we have our flaws, but there are so many other countries that are worse off than where we are. And as an immigrant and as an African American, he can stand here and say he is proud to be an American because he knows where he comes from. And he knows the grass is not always greener. So it is up to us to make America be what we want and what we need it to be. Not just for us, but for our future generations. So at this point in time, like I said, this is my daughter, Sydney, and my nephew, Gio. They are, this is Gio, this is his brother on my shirt here. His name was Justice. And he battled cancer in 2018, and he won. He won. But the one thing that he told us, and the one thing as a family that we learned from this is that we do not want to be space taker-uppers. We are here to make a difference because people like Justice left us here to do so. They charged us on his way out. He charged us to be difference makers. He charged us to remind people of who God is. So when Governor Cuomo said there will be no church right here, this right here, we showed up to church every Sunday. We led praise and worship every Sunday because we're not governed by Governor Cuomo. We are governed by God, and we do what God tells us to do. And we know where our strength and our help and our hope
How's it going?
comes
How you doing, brother?
from.
Ask me a
And
quick
it all
question. Sure.
comes from God. So here
I would say this. Obviously, jet fuels at 1,800 degrees. We don't even have to talk about melting of steel beams. They had 2,000. You got it, brother. Yes.
Big fan.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
How many already have church today? We've heard a lot of great speakers today. We've heard a lot of great messages. But the message that we want to leave today is that there is still hope. No matter what's going on, no matter what the outcome looks like, we still have hope. So, we're going to sing a song for you. Called You Keep Hope Alive.
Oh. All right, guys, it looks like we're almost wrapping this bad boy up. I'm not sure whether or not I'm going to go around and get interviews with people. I did have several people just recognize me, give me the thumbs up, ask me what was going on in the world, and I just want to say thank you to all your support out there. You know, how many people are broadcasting this? How many people are talking about this? How many people are talking about the real issues here in New York that have to deal with mandatory vaccines? This is it. This is the crowd. And it was great to be amongst, you know, it thinned out at the end here, but 200 or so people who aren't wearing masks, who aren't living in fear, who are pushing back against the tyranny, who realize this is a transhumanist agenda, who realize that we're under medical martial law, that we do not have a Second Amendment right, you know, right now in this state. And it's sad. I don't like being here in front of the Capitol having to fight this outward tyranny. It's not my favorite thing to do, trust me. And I sincerely wish there were more people here, but I am still very happy that hundreds of people did show up and are pushing back against this medical martial law, this tyranny. That's what we're up against. And I need you guys to push back as hard as you possibly can as well. I'll more than likely do a wrap-up show on the ride back into town. But thumbs the video up, subscribe, share, and show this to people. You know, medical professionals are being silenced, but people are pushing back and will continue to do so. Remember, it's not about left or right, it's about right and wrong, and there's a lot of wrong going on in this state. I love you guys, and I'll see you on the flip.